A blue whale appears alone on the surface of the ocean. Its long back rises through the water, followed by a small dorsal fin that seems almost insignificant compared with the size of the body beneath it. The whale releases a column of breath, disappears, and leaves behind nothing but ripples. There are no other whales nearby, no family pod moving beside it, and no visible sign that another member of its species exists anywhere beyond the horizon. This is how blue whales are often imagined: solitary giants wandering through an almost empty ocean. Unlike orcas, they do not normally travel inside permanent, multi-generational families. Unlike dolphins, they do not form large, stable social groups that remain together every day. Most sightings involve one whale, two whales, or a temporary gathering around food. But solitary does not necessarily mean isolated. Beneath the surface, blue whales may belong to a hidden social network stretching across hundreds of kilometers, connected not by constant physical contact, but by sound, memory, seasonal movement, and repeated encounters in the same parts of the ocean. The blue whale's lifestyle makes close group living difficult. A body weighing more than 100 tons requires an enormous amount of food. During productive seasons, one adult may consume several tons of krill in a single day. If many blue whales remained tightly grouped for long periods, they could place intense pressure on the same prey patch. Krill may gather in huge swarms, but even a dense concentration can be reduced quickly when several giants begin feeding. Spreading out allows each whale to search a larger area and exploit separate food resources. This may explain why blue whale society looks so different from the societies of smaller toothed whales. Orcas often depend on cooperation to capture prey. Their family members help one another hunt fish, seals, sharks, and other whales. Blue whales do not need companions to overpower krill. A feeding lunge is usually performed by one individual using its own enormous mouth and body. There is no need for a pack to surround prey or divide it into manageable pieces. The blue whale's feeding strategy favors individual movement, but that does not remove the need for communication. The ocean is too large and too dark for a whale to rely only on vision. Even another blue whale can disappear from sight after moving a relatively short distance underwater. Sound travels much farther. Blue whales produce some of the lowest frequency calls in the animal kingdom. These sounds can move through deep water across extraordinary distances, depending on ocean conditions. A whale may hear another individual that is far beyond the visible horizon. This creates an invisible form of companionship. Two whales do not need to swim side by side to remain acoustically aware of one another. One may be feeding in deep water while another travels many kilometers away. A low call passes between them through darkness. The receiving whale may recognize the sound as coming from a member of the same population. It may respond, continue moving in the same direction, or simply remain aware that another giant is present somewhere in the surrounding ocean. Humans usually define a group by physical closeness. We imagine animals gathered in the same place, touching, watching, or moving together. Blue whales may use a different form of social distance. Their society can exist across a scale far larger than our eyes can observe. The network is not visible as a pod, but it may still contain information about identity, location, reproduction, and movement. Different blue whale populations produce distinctive song patterns. A whale in the North Pacific does not necessarily use the same sequence as one in the Indian Ocean or Antarctic waters. These regional songs function like acoustic signatures. They allow scientists to identify populations through underwater recordings, but they may also help the whales recognize animals belonging to the same broad social and migratory community. A male blue whale can repeat a structured song for long periods. The precise meaning remains uncertain, but the song is strongly associated with males and may play a role in reproduction. It could advertise the singer's presence, physical condition, location, or readiness to mate. A female may hear several males over great distances without approaching them immediately. The ocean becomes an enormous acoustic space in which potential partners can detect one another before any close encounter occurs. This is especially important because blue whales are widely distributed. Finding a mate in the open ocean is not simple. There are no permanent breeding colonies where all adults gather at the same moment. The whales must locate one another while moving through vast seasonal habitats. Sound increases the effective range of each animal. A whale that appears completely alone may actually be broadcasting its presence to distant listeners and receiving calls from individuals far beyond human observation. The repeated song may also help whales maintain loose contact while traveling. Two individuals can follow similar routes without remaining constantly close. One may pass through an area hours or days after another. Calls recorded along migration corridors reveal that whales continue using acoustic signals even when sightings are rare. Their voices leave evidence of a social world that visual surveys often miss. Temporary associations do occur. Blue whales are frequently observed in pairs. Although these partnerships may not last for years in the way an orca family does, two adults may travel together for part of a migration, feed in the same region, or participate in courtship. A pair may remain close enough for visual and acoustic contact, then separate when environmental conditions or reproductive behavior change. Researchers sometimes observe three whales moving together during what appears to be a courtship sequence. A female travels ahead while two males follow. The males may accelerate, maneuver around one another, and compete for position. This racing trio reveals that even a species normally seen alone can enter intense, dynamic social interactions when reproduction is involved. The association may be temporary, but it requires attention, communication, and recognition between the individuals. Mother and calf form the strongest and most obvious blue whale relationship. For several months, the calf remains close to the mother, depending on her for milk, protection, guidance, and access to migration routes. Their physical closeness is very different from the distant contact typical of adults. The calf swims beside or slightly behind the mother, following changes in direction and surfacing near her body. The mother adjusts her behavior to the calf's limitations. She may travel more slowly, perform shorter dives, and remain closer to the surface. The calf cannot yet hold its breath or move with the efficiency of an adult. The pair must coordinate constantly. If visibility becomes poor, quiet calls and physical positioning may help them avoid separation. This early relationship may shape how the young whale later experiences the ocean. By following its mother, the calf learns a migration route, encounters feeding habitats, and becomes exposed to the calls used by its population. It begins life inside a close social bond before eventually entering the looser, more widely spaced network of adult blue whales. When the calf becomes independent, the permanent physical connection ends. Blue whales do not normally remain with their mothers throughout life. Yet knowledge acquired during those months may continue guiding the young animal for years. It may return to feeding regions first visited beside its mother. It may follow a seasonal route learned during its first migration. It may reproduce the acoustic patterns heard throughout early development. The social relationship disappears from sight, but its influence remains inside memory and behavior. In this sense, a young blue whale carries part of its mother's experience even after they separate. The adult may appear solitary, yet its route through the ocean has been shaped by another whale. Food can bring many blue whales into the same area. When ocean conditions produce enormous concentrations of krill, several individuals may gather within a productive feeding ground. From a distance, this can look like a group. Tall blows rise from different points across the water. Whales surface, breathe, and dive near one another. But the gathering is not necessarily a stable social unit. The animals have been attracted by the same resource. Even so, feeding aggregations create opportunities for interaction. Whales can hear and see one another. They may adjust their spacing to avoid collisions during lunges. They may respond to the movements of individuals that have located the densest prey. A whale surfacing repeatedly in one area can indirectly reveal that food is present below. Blue whales may therefore gain information from companions without deliberately cooperating. One whale begins performing repeated feeding dives. Another nearby animal detects the movement or sound and investigates the area. Soon, several whales are using the same krill patch while maintaining enough distance to feed safely. Their enormous size makes spacing important. A blue whale accelerating with its mouth open cannot turn quickly. Two whales lunging into the same narrow section of prey could risk collision. They must remain aware of one another's positions, especially when feeding near the surface or inside dense aggregations. Calls, movement, bubbles, and hydrodynamic pressure may all provide information. This does not create a coordinated hunt in the same sense as orcas working together, but it shows that blue whale feeding is not always socially empty. Several independent hunters can share a landscape while continuously monitoring one another. Temporary gatherings may also allow whales to compare information about changing prey. If one region becomes unproductive, animals begin leaving. A whale that observes others traveling in a particular direction may follow, especially if the movement leads toward another feeding opportunity. Scientists cannot assume that every similar route results from social decision-making, because currents, temperature, and prey can independently guide multiple whales. But the possibility of social information remains important. The hidden network may extend across seasons. Individual whales can return to the same feeding grounds year after year. Researchers identify them through unique patterns of pigmentation, scars, and markings on the body. Photographs sometimes reveal that animals seen near one another during one season appear in the same broad region again in later years. This does not prove they maintain friendships like humans or dolphins, but repeated overlap creates familiarity. Long-lived whales may encounter some of the same individuals many times across their lives. They may recognize their calls, movements, or physical appearance. A feeding ground can become a seasonal meeting place for animals whose paths separate during the rest of the year. Their social system may therefore be closer to a changing neighborhood than a permanent family. Individuals travel independently, but they share migration corridors, songs, feeding habitats, and breeding regions. Some encounters last minutes, others may continue for days. Certain whales may meet repeatedly over decades. The scale of this network creates a challenge for researchers. Human observers usually see only a small section of ocean for a short period. A whale appears alone, and we describe it as solitary. But we do not hear every call it receives. Know which individual passed through the region the previous day, or understand whether the whale is following another animal beyond the horizon. Underwater acoustic monitoring has begun revealing how incomplete visual observation can be. Hydrophones record blue whale calls throughout the night, during storms, and in seasons when research vessels are absent. An area that appears empty at the surface may contain several calling whales distributed across a wide region. Their signals overlap, repeat, and change over time. Some calls may be part of long-distance exchanges. One whale produces a sound, followed later by another call from a different direction. Determining whether this is a direct conversation is difficult because the whales may be separated by great distances and underwater acoustics can distort the apparent timing. Still, the patterns demonstrate that multiple individuals occupy the same acoustic environment. Blue whales may also change their calling behavior according to whether they are feeding, traveling, or interacting socially. Repeated male songs can continue for hours, while other, shorter, more variable calls may occur during close-range behavior or foraging. This suggests that the whales possess different acoustic tools for different social distances. A long, powerful call can function as a broadcast. It reaches any whale capable of hearing it within a large area. A quieter or more variable call may be more useful when another animal is nearby. The whale can adjust not only what it produces, but also when it produces it. Human-generated noise threatens this system. Commercial ships create low-frequency sound that overlaps with the frequencies used by blue whales. A call that once traveled clearly across a large region can become masked by engines and propellers. The whale still produces the signal, but distant listeners may no longer detect it. For a species that often depends on long-range communication, masking can effectively shrink the social environment. Imagine two whales separated by 100 kilometers under quiet conditions. A call might connect them. When shipping noise fills the water between them, the acoustic link weakens or disappears. The whales have not moved farther apart, but they become more isolated. They may respond by calling more loudly, repeating signals, changing timing, or moving away from noisy areas. Each response has a cost. Increasing vocal effort requires energy. Leaving a productive habitat sacrifices food. Failing to detect a potential mate can reduce reproductive opportunities. Noise may be particularly harmful because blue whales already exist at relatively low population densities in many regions. Industrial whaling killed enormous numbers of them during the 20th century. Even where populations are recovering, whales can remain widely separated. Fewer animals mean fewer voices. More noise makes those voices harder to hear. The result is an ocean that may be biologically quieter, but mechanically louder. A whale sends a call into the water, and the signal competes with thousands of ships, somewhere beyond the noise. Another whale may be listening, but unable to distinguish the message. Climate change can also reshape the network by moving the whale's food. If warming waters shift, krill swarms away from traditional feeding grounds. Blue whales may spread into new regions or abandon places where repeated seasonal encounters once occurred. Familiar animals may no longer arrive at the same time. Migration routes can change. The acoustic landscape of an entire population may gradually reorganize. A blue whale's social world is therefore inseparable from the physical ocean. Currents determine where prey gathers. Prey influences where whales meet. Temperature affects sound transmission. Shipping alters communication. A change in the environment can separate animals without any visible barrier appearing between them. Their society does not require permanent contact, but it depends on opportunities to reconnect. Feeding grounds, migration corridors, reproductive areas, and acoustic channels all help maintain those connections. Somewhere in the Pacific, a blue whale travels alone through deep water. No other whale is visible. It takes several breaths and begins a long dive. Hundreds of meters below the surface, it finds a narrow layer of krill and performs several feeding lunges. Far away, another blue whale produces a low call. The vibration enters a layer of water that carries sound across great distances. It travels through darkness, beneath ships and waves, gradually weakening but remaining recognizable. The feeding whale may detect the signal. It does not immediately swim toward the caller. It does not need to. The sound itself contains something valuable, evidence that another member of its species is present somewhere beyond the visible world. Later, the first whale may call in return. The response travels outward after the original singer has already moved. The two animals may never meet that day. They may remain separated by an expanse of water too large for any human observer to cross quickly. Yet for a moment, they occupy the same social space. This is the hidden society of blue whales. It is not built from tightly packed pods or permanent families. It is built from distant voices, temporary pairs, mothers and calves, seasonal feeding gatherings, repeated migration routes, and encounters separated by months or years. A blue whale can spend much of its life physically alone, without living in complete social isolation. Its companions may exist beyond the horizon. Its community may be spread across an ocean basin. Its nearest neighbor may be invisible but not silent. When the whale surfaces, we see only one enormous body surrounded by open water. We call it solitary because nothing else appears in the frame. But the ocean extends far beyond what the eye can capture. Beneath the surface, calls are moving through the darkness. Other whales are traveling along the same seasonal routes. Familiar feeding grounds are waiting hundreds of kilometers away. The blue whale is alone, but it is still part of something larger. Its voice joins a population-wide chorus. Its movements cross paths with animals it may meet again in another season. Its first journey was guided by a mother, and its future may depend on hearing a mate whose body remains far beyond sight. For the largest animal in history, society does not always mean staying close. Sometimes connection is a sound traveling through dark water, a route remembered from childhood, or a distant breath rising somewhere beyond the horizon. The blue whale's world may appear empty to us, but to the whale, the ocean is filled with voices,